In today's episode of Erudite Magic, I'm going to share my top 5 favorite magic books. In case you're new here, my name is Jeff Kowalk, and this is Erudite Magic, where we talk about all things magic book related. As I was preparing my list, I realized that many of my favorite magic books are sadly out of print. I normally only talk about magic books that are in print because I want you to be able to get and enjoy the books that I'm talking about. Even though I typically only talk about magic books that are still in print, I thought it was important that I share with you my favorite books, even if they're not still in print. During the episode, feel free to opine on the books that did or did not make my list. Tell me if you agree with my choices or if you didn't, as the case may be. Also, I want to hear from you. Share what your favorite books are. Beyond just a list of 5 books, I also want to share with you why these books made my top 5 list. I believe we can learn from each other about what makes a great magic book by discussing that why. Since I mentioned that many of these books are out of print, and before I get into my list, I want to talk to you about my sponsor, Don's Magic and Books. Don is one of the best places online of which I'm aware where you can find out-of-print books. He has a huge selection and doesn't just carry out-of-print books, he also has the latest and greatest. Everything from Vanishing Ink to H&R Books. But not only does he have books, he has tricks, DVDs, and props at his website, donsmagicandbooks.com. Again, if you're new here, Don typically offers a discount code on this channel each week so that you, the erudite magicians out there, can save when you buy magic books. The code this week is FAVORITE. And if you apply that at checkout at Don's, you'll save 10% off the lowest marked prices on his entire website. But wait, there's more. If you purchase $20 or more of media items and you're in the United States, Don will give you a full refund of your shipping charges. And if you're one of those people who's purchasing internationally, then you can use shipit2.com to see how much shipping will be to you. While I can't guarantee you that he will have the out-of-print books in stock, I can guarantee you that you will enjoy your shopping experience with Don, and you'll save enough to make sure that you can get even more magic. So start shopping this week and save with the link in the comments below. The number 5 book on my list of favorite magic books is a Vanishing Ink publication, and it is a mentalism book because I am a performing mentalist. It is Florian Severin's What Lies Inside. I've done a full review and I'll put a link up in the corner, but let me just summarize why I love this book so much. Florian is an incredibly great thinker, and this book was put out a number of years ago, 2012, but it contains 0 card tricks. Now, I'm not against card tricks, but there are just so many of them out there. It's really refreshing to pick up a book that doesn't talk about cards at all and still presents some powerful magic. His essay on pre-show is one of the best write-ups I've ever seen about the subject in any magic book ever. So if you're thinking about doing pre-show in your mentalism work, you definitely want to check out what he has to say. It's super entertaining to read. He injects a lot of humor into the presentations and the writing style. Plus, it's that kind of unique blend between magic and mentalism, or mental magic, that is appealing to a great number of performers, myself included. If you want to know the full story, be sure to check out the full review, but suffice it to say, I revisit this book often. And if you're into great magic crediting, I have not found a better book than this one. He has everything you could ever want about the magic being credited, as well as non-magic books that are in the further reading sections. So that blend is right up my alley because I love to read not only magic books, but also books about making your life and others around you lives better. The book is sadly out of print now, but you can still download a sample from the website, and I'm going to drop a link down in the description below so that you can do so. And after you've read it and decided that you want this book in your life, you can email the team at Vanishing Ink to demand a reprint. Number 4 on my list dovetails really well with last week's episode. You did see last week's episode, didn't you? It is another Nick Trost book. This time it is The Card Magic of Nick Trost. This book contains some of my favorite card tricks that I still perform to this day. All of the tricks are so accessible and easy to perform. It's a lot of straightforward card magic that packs a powerful punch. This is a hardbound book put out in the mid-90s by L&L Publishing and contains the best of all of Nick Trost's material up to the point this book was published, including a lot of marketed effects, trick decks, packet tricks, ESP items, etc. Sadly, it also is out of print. What is it with these magic books and going out of print? For a while, L&L offered it as an ebook, sometimes for as little as $10. I do understand that with the sale of the L&L portfolio of books, Murphy's Magic now owns this, so if you know someone who owns the rights to this book, I would love to be a part of getting this one republished. So reach out to me. The book has a little bit of something for everyone. Gambling to packet tricks, all of it readily available with just a modicum of skill. Why do I love this book? Well, because the magic is just so simple, but no simpler, to use the words of Di Vernon. When I perform these card tricks for lay participants, they absolutely love the material, and I love performing it for them. It's got so much card material in it. To me, if you're a beginner and all you know are self-working card tricks, this is a great bridge to get you just beyond the self-working into things that just use that tiny bit of sleight of hand. Number 3 on my list of favorite magic books is a modern masterpiece by none other than the venerable David Regal. Of course, that could mean almost any book, but I'm talking about his Approaching Magic. This is a very hefty tome, but it has such a rich variety of magic from which to choose. David Regal is sharing all of his latest thinking, from coins to cards, mentalism to chop cups. There's a little bit of everything, quite a smorgasbord. But the why behind this book, what really sets it apart from all the other books, are the plots and the scripts that he includes. David Regal, for those who don't know, is a professional TV writer. He's helped produce The Carbonaro Effect, as well as written for Everybody Loves Raymond and Rugrats. So he's been involved in a lot of really great Hollywood-level productions. And what he's sharing with you in this book are his presentations for magic with scripts, just like you would find in a Hollywood show or movie. You're getting performance-ready scripts, and while I don't think that you should just parrot what you read in a book or watch on a video, you could do a lot worse than starting with a professional script writer like David Regal. To give you an example of the type of thinking and presentations that David comes up with, there's a routine in here called Will the Socks Match, which is based on Larry Becker's Will the Cards Match. And I'm sure that the idea goes back even further. Anyway, I have performed that effect not only for my entrance into the International Brotherhood of Magicians, but also in a live virtual performance that I did during the pandemic. It is such a great book with just a ton of magic. You could flip to almost any page in here and find something that's going to be interesting. There are a number of his commercial items like restored credit. There are items with bill switches, making your own chop cup. There's stuff with invisible thread and haunted decks, floating bills, gambling packet tricks. He's sharing some of his own original sleights with packets of cards. There's mentalism stuff that I've performed in here. I'm telling you, you can't really go wrong with this, and this is one of the few books on my list that's still in print. So I really believe you should consider getting it now before it's out of print. You can get it straight from David Regal, or as I've already mentioned, Don occasionally has copies that go for very reasonable prices. I happen to have the hardbound version, but I believe there's a softbound now that sells for just a little bit less. So definitely check this one out if you're into top-notch scripts and plots and relatively easy to do magic covering a variety of props and situations. By the way, I have done a full review of Approaching Magic, so you can click up here in the corner to watch that review if you're interested in learning more about the book. And I have a full interview coming with David Regal in the next few weeks, so be sure not to miss that. Number 2 on my list of favorite magic books comes with a tiny bit of regret. It still saddens me a little bit that I never got to meet the late, great Ted Leslie before his passing. Ted Leslie was one of Germany's top mentalists and magicians. I am, of course, referring to his book, Paramiracles. This book is one of my favorite blends of magic and mentalism, as I've already kind of talked about with what lies inside. As with some of the other books, I have done a full review of this, which again I'll link in the corner, but it's such a wonderful, delightful read by a real master of entertainment who didn't really care whether the audience perceived him as a mentalist, a magician, a mental magician. He didn't care as long as they came first, as long as they were entertained. This book is really high on my list for a couple of reasons. One is just because I use so many of the ideas, concepts, and even some of the tricks that are in this book. His essay on the center tear alone is one of the main reasons that I always have a pad of paper and a pen with me so that I can perform a bit of impromptu mentalism anytime, any place. And if you're like me, you're basically an Office Max maven, then he'll teach you a lot of different things that you can create using nothing more than bits of paper and envelopes. For example, he has a couple of envelopes that he shows you how to make, one of which will switch any small object like a piece of paper or even a card in your participants' hands after they've verified that they put something in, closed it up, sealed it up, opened it themselves across the room even. You never have to touch it and you can switch something out. It's almost like real magic. There are also some ingenious ideas with playing cards where you could let a participant shuffle a complete deck. I mean, they can verify all 52 cards are there. They'll shuffle the cards. They will very fairly choose a card. You don't have to touch the deck. And yet from across the room, you can either predict or reveal the card they're merely thinking of. There's some incredible stuff in this. But the real why of why this book makes number 2 on my list is because it comes from a different era of magic books. What do I mean by that? This was an era where an author would put together their entire life's work, their magnum opus, into one volume. A book like this. These aren't just pipe dreams in this book. These are all real-world pieces of magic that have been time-tested and audience approved. And you know what? This book was only $45 when it first came out new. Now I get it, that was a few years ago, and so maybe with inflation that's more like $55 or $60 now. But regardless, this wasn't one of those things where someone who's my age in their 30s is publishing everything they've learned, over the last 10 years, and then 5 years from now they'll publish another book. No, this was a lifetime of work for $45. Absolutely incredible value, and frankly, I just don't think they make them like this anymore. As I've expressed with the other books, Paramiracles is more or less out of print, but Don has sold multiple copies of this book for right around that original asking price. So you definitely want to stay tuned to his website, check out the links, and search early, search often to see if he gets a copy of that in, because if you can get a copy of Paramiracles, I guarantee you will not regret it. Lastly, my number 1 favorite magic book, which is a little bit ironic to call it that because it's actually a book of mentalism by an author who takes far more seriously the distinction between a mental magician and a mentalist. I am talking about The Artful Mentalism of Bob Cassidy. This book is a compilation by H&R Books of The Art of Mentalism 2, The Principia Mentalia, Theories and Methods for the Practical Psychic, Strange Impressions, but Stranger Still, on and on. It doesn't really matter what those titles were. The point here is that Bob Cassidy was a tremendous mentalism creator, author, and performer who came up with a lot of modern classics of mentalism. And this book, more than any other, has influenced my thinking about the way I perform mentalism. I already mentioned that Bob Cassidy draws a very strict line between mentalism and magic, and I don't always agree with that. However, this book stretched my thinking beyond where I was when I first started reading it. And frankly, it really caused me to consider and put thought into what I'm trying to present to my audiences. I still perform a lot of items from this book. Some of them go into my parlor show, some of them are close-up items. The thinking, just the devious cleverness of most of this is absolutely awesome. His fourth dimensional telepathy, if you see a mentalist who isn't performing fourth dimensional telepathy, I'm shocked. But Bob Cassidy took Ted Animan's original idea and took it to another level of deceptiveness, which is why so many working pros use material from this book. Ultimately, isn't that really the marker of a good book, when you use and apply what you've learned from the text? And in fact, when I look at all 5 of these books, what do they all have in common? To me, it's that I have learned and applied things from them. I mean, I read a lot of books, but not all of them are useful for real-life performances. Each of the books on my list pass the real-life performance test. You can perform the items in these books for real-world audiences, and your audiences are going to have a blast, and you are going to have a ton of fun performing for them when you perform this material. Alternatively, if I didn't get tricks from the books, they stretched my thinking in ways that I hadn't considered before and impacted the way in which I performed the tricks that I did perform. I hope, if nothing else, that this episode causes you to go back to your shelf, find some of your favorite books, and revisit what it is they're teaching you, whether that's tricks you're going to use for real-world audiences or thinking that's going to change the way you perform. As you undertake that exercise, please drop a comment down below with what you're going to be studying or books that you love to revisit that are some of your favorites. You may have noticed during this video that a lot of the books are more recent publications, but if you still want to learn from old school books, check out this video about my thoughts on that. And if you want to see a different type of list altogether about books that I didn't like as much as these, be sure to check out this video. As always, my friends, I appreciate you watching, and until next time, keep reading.